Welcome back to Fact Bloom Insights. In the summer of 1931, China faced a catastrophe so immense that its scale is difficult to comprehend, even by today's standards. The floods that swept through the country between June and August of that year remain among the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history, their legacy lingering not only in the stories of survival and loss, but also in the very landscape and infrastructure of modern China. This was not just a flood, it was an apocalypse, a calamity that touched the lives of millions and reshaped a nation. The epicenter of the disaster was the Yangtze River Valley, a region that has long been the lifeblood of China's agriculture and trade. In 1931, relentless rainfall inundated approximately 180,000 square kilometers, an area comparable to all of England and half of Scotland combined. The sheer magnitude of the floodwaters is staggering. Major cities such as Wuhan and Nanjing were submerged, with Wuhan itself remaining underwater for nearly 3 months. Streets became rivers, homes vanished beneath the murky tide, and the daily rhythms of life ground to a halt as the population struggled to survive in a transformed world. Estimates of the death toll vary, but even the most conservative figures are shocking. At least 422,000 people lost their lives, and some sources suggest that the number may have reached as high as 4 million. Over 25 million people were directly affected, their lives disrupted by the loss of homes, farms, and loved ones. In the Yangtze Valley alone, approximately 15% of all wheat and rice crops were destroyed. This devastation extended far beyond the immediate impact of the floodwaters. It triggered a widespread famine as food supplies dwindled and disease spread among survivors. Recent research has shed new light on the meteorological causes of the 1931 floods. In a 2023 study, scientists identified the combined effects of El Niño-driven sea surface temperature anomalies and extratropical wave activities over Eurasia as key factors behind the persistent, heavy rainfall in July of that year. These unusual weather patterns conspired to unleash torrents of rain over central and eastern China, pushing the Yangtze River and its tributaries far beyond their capacity. This scientific understanding not only helps explain the extraordinary nature of the 1931 disaster, but also underscores the challenges of predicting and managing such events in an era of complex climate dynamics. The consequences of the floods were felt in every corner of society. In urban centers, entire neighborhoods disappeared beneath the water. Boats replaced carts on city streets, and makeshift rafts became the only means of escape. In rural areas, the destruction of crops led to hunger and desperation. Disease spread rapidly in the aftermath, as contaminated water led to outbreaks of cholera, typhoid, and dysentery. Relief efforts were hampered by the sheer scale of the disaster and by the limited resources available in a nation still recovering from years of political upheaval. The government's response in the aftermath of the disaster marked a turning point in China's approach to flood management. Recognizing the need to prevent future catastrophes, China embarked on an ambitious program of infrastructure development. Dikes, reservoirs, and flood detention areas were constructed to help control the flow of water and protect vulnerable communities. By 2019, the country had built 98,112 reservoirs and 98 large flood detention areas, increasing total storage capacity from 408.1 billion cubic meters in 1979 to an astonishing 898.3 billion cubic meters by 2019. These measures reflect a national commitment to building resilience in the face of natural disasters, informed by the hard lessons of the past. Yet, the story of the 1931 floods is more than a tale of loss and response. It is a reminder of the fragility of human civilization in the face of nature's power. Despite all our advances, we remain vulnerable to the forces of weather and water. The floods exposed not only the physical vulnerabilities of China's infrastructure, but also the social and economic disparities that left the poorest communities most at risk. In the aftermath, stories emerged of families separated, children orphaned, and entire villages erased from the map. The human cost of the disaster is measured not just in statistics, but in the memories and grief of those who survived. As we analyze the events of 1931, several key lessons emerge. First, the importance of understanding meteorological and climatic patterns cannot be overstated. The floods were not simply the result of heavy rains, but of complex interactions between global and regional weather systems. Advances in climate science have equipped us with better tools to predict and prepare for such events, but the unpredictability of nature remains a constant challenge. Second, the scale of the disaster highlights the need for robust infrastructure and disaster preparedness. The investments made in the decades following the flood have undoubtedly saved countless lives, but they also serve as a reminder that prevention is always preferable to response. Modern flood control systems, early warning networks, and coordinated relief efforts are essential components of a resilient society. Third, the 1931 floods underscore the importance of social cohesion and community support in times of crisis. In the face of overwhelming loss, it was often the strength of local communities, the generosity of neighbors, and the determination of survivors that made the difference. As climate-related disasters become more frequent and intense, these human qualities will remain as vital as any technological innovation. Reflecting on the 1931 China floods, one cannot help but feel a sense of awe at the scale of both the disaster and the response. The courage of those who endured, the ingenuity of those who rebuilt, and the lessons learned have all contributed to a safer, more resilient China. Yet, the memory of the floods is also a warning, a reminder that nature's power can upend our certainties and challenge our assumptions. In honoring the victims and survivors of this forgotten apocalypse, we also commit ourselves to building a future in which such tragedies can be prevented, or at least mitigated. The legacy of the 1931 floods lives on in the reservoirs, dikes, and flood detention areas that now dot the Chinese landscape. It is echoed in the policies and practices that guide modern flood management and disaster response. And it is remembered in the stories passed down through generations, tales of survival and loss that remind us of the enduring strength of the human spirit. As we face the uncertainties of a changing climate, the lessons of 1931 remain as relevant as ever, a testament to both the devastation wrought by nature and the resilience of those who rebuild in its wake. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to follow the next videos.